we're ready to go. So requirement number 1, we have to create 2 curves with degree number 3. So very fast, I will type curve, I will go under the parentheses, and I will make sure that my degree is 3. We create random curves, so you can have as many control points as you wish. So that's one, and this is the second one. They shouldn't be the same because since we are making a section, the section should have some interest points. Okay. Now those 2 lines are flat. We need to make them stand up before we create the loft. So very fast I will select my lines. The instructions said to you guys, use your gumball, which is the easy way. So just click under the red arc, which is rotation in the positive z-axis, and write down 90. And here you have them. Another way to go would be to just type rotate 3D. This is class number 1, the basics of Rhino. So rotate 3D, this is what we used to do before we have Rhino 5 and the gumball. I will select my objects, I will hit enter, and now we'll need to basically provide a very successful 3D axis of how the rotation will happen. Same result. Nice. Next step, you guys have to move those 2 curves apart in the y-axis, and in order to have more interest again in the elevation, I will move one of them towards the z-axis too, so they are not in the same height. So step number 1 and 2, pretty straightforward. Let's move on to step number 4, which is the lofting step. I will select my curves, I will type loft, and I like here to preview my surface, so I will go under shaded instead of wireframe. And I have a very fancy background, nice. Yeah, I can change that. If you guys want, you can guide me, of course, on how can I change my background. So this will happen right after. Let's finish the loft command and let's see how this can change. So the instructions said make sure that your style is normal. There are a few styles to choose from. Another style that is widely used is the straight sections, because this will create developable surfaces. So if you want to laser cut, straight sections or developable are the 2 options you would like to work with. For now, just normal. And okay. So let's change the background. Who remembers? Again? Options, very nice, Hito. So go under options. View and display modes, and we are under the shaded, so I need to go and select shaded. And here is where Hito says, okay, you don't want solid color as black, you want it as gray. Okay, and this is back to normal. Doesn't mean that this is better, it's up to you guys, whatever you prefer. Okay, so let's move on. Step number 5, we need to give some thickness to this canopy, to the surface, so it's believable. So I will select my surface and I will type offset surface. Now I have to read very carefully. I need to give a distance that is logical. Here I can start large, so most of you started with 1 or 5 and you ended up having a very huge thickness. Since this is a slab that has an idea of, let's say, a normal concrete thickness could be, or wood, something like that, we need to go minimum. So I will leave that at 0.125 quarter. Let's see how this looks like. Then corner, let's say sharp. If you go into round, you will have rounded corners. For sure you want the solid to equal yes, otherwise you won't have thickness, you will have just the 2 surfaces offsetted. And I usually say do not delete input, so I can keep my very first surface for my archive. Now, before I hit enter, I need to understand a little bit my geometry. So if I flip towards the inside and my curve up here has a very, very narrow curvature, I may get some problems. This is a problem that most of you had. So if your curve is very narrow, first thing you want to do is to probably fix the curve, obviously, because it cannot be constructed out there with thickness. Second trick, maybe the flip all would work, which means that the thickness will go to the exterior side. This will give you a bigger curvature. I will hit enter, and this is what I get. It's pretty tiny, so I will Control Z and repeat the command, and I will give thickness 0.5. The rest are fine, no? I will flip all again, enter, and this is easier for us to see. Okay, right away I have a new surface created. I will polysurface, excuse me. I will go under the layers, and I will organize my work into different layers. So this is going to be my thickness.
Question, Professor.
Yes.
You said when you're giving tendency, you're having some problems. What happens if you rebuild it and you give more displacement lines?
Right,
That still works?
yeah, that's another way to smooth out your geometry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that it will work always, though.
Oh.
You may end up having to do the same thing, either rebuild the different curves or flip out towards the normals. Yeah. So this is my geometry, and all I need to do now is to create a few sections. I will try to create one, and then you can create as many as you want accordingly. So step number 6. I need to go to the top view and create interest axis for sections. Interesting. So I will just type line. I will go here to this side. Holding shift, I can create one line. Is this line enough to give information of the section or not? I think I'm missing something. So if I go back to this first year student, she had these very good arrows here that show the direction of my section. Okay, I cut in this axis, but where do I look and where do I turn my back? That's very important. So even if we're doing things fast, as a reference, we need to come up with these arrows. So again, polyline, and I will cut, let's say, here and look towards this direction. Enter, and I will select that and place it in a separate layer. I will call that section cuts. And I will move on. You had to create 2 of those. I minimize my time right now. Number 8, select the thickened surface and then type cut plane. So I will go back to my perspective to see what's going on. I will select my geometry and I will type cut plane. I need to give ending points for the cut plane, so obviously I will respect the section line. And here is what the command cut plane does. Basically understands what is the bounding box of my geometry, and then creates a plane that follows a given axis, but also includes the whole geometry inside. So that's pretty helpful. Everybody okay till that point? Yeah. Next step. My goal is to create an actual section in here, but also, since I can see behind, so I can see all of these things happening behind of these very dark thicknesses, I think that the make 2D is the second step to go. If I only type section, I will only take those intense black thickness of lines. On the other hand, if I trim my object and then make 2D from the front side, I will be able to get the depth of my geometry. And let's see, what do I mean. I will first type only the command section, no make 2Ds. So I want to create a section. This is the object I want to section, enter. And I will start my section following, of course, my guideline. As you can see, my screen yellow highlighted. I have this perimeter outline that I can easily paint black and say this is my section. But this is not going to be enough. So let's place that in a separate layer. Change object layer, and this is the actual section. This is how it looks like. So if I go to the front view, this would be my line drawing. Do you guys agree that this is not enough? Yeah. So I need to see what's going on the back side. So I need to see all of this information that I can see in my actual 3D model. For that reason, I'm not done. I will go back to my perspective view. And here is where I need to copy my drawing, so I have an actual archive. If something goes wrong, I can go back. So holding Alt, I will copy my geometry. And now I will trim the side of my geometry that I cannot see. So type trim. This is my cutting object, and this is the geometry I want to get rid of. So if I go again to the front view, this is how the section line drawing should look like. And now you guys know the process. From this point on, in order to create a line drawing in Illustrator, you need to make 2D. So before I make 2D, I have to make sure that I have my sections in a separate layer, and I have also my geometry in a different layer. I will go to the front or side view according to what section I want to generate. I will select all of the geometry, and I will type make 2D. Here, for sure, I want, of course, to create the current view. It's up to you to say show hidden lines or not. It's a matter of you adding sophistication to your drawing or not. If your geometry is very complex, you probably want to avoid the hidden lines so it doesn't get very messy. For now, I'm going to keep it because I think it's going to add something positive. Definitely, you want to maintain source layers. Why? Because you have both section layer and the thickness layer. So I will say OK and see what happened. Let's go to the top view. Let's move what it was just generated. And now it's up to us to decide if we are almost ready to move to Illustrator or not. What do you guys think, the way you see this drawing? Again? So Ellie says that there is one moment here, down here, that I should have taken care earlier, where I can see that my geometry overlaps. This is the moment that I probably either want to cheat, this is also part of the process, or I want to go back and redefine my geometry. If I want to construct this canopy, I definitely don't want to cheat. If I want to submit for the class we are doing now that is very conceptual and only conveys specific ideas, I definitely want to cheat. So it's good. I will probably clean up my drawing and then move on. Now, apart from that, what else do I want to make sure that I have here? Under my Make 2D layers, I have my visible and hidden lines. Let's turn off the hidden and let's focus under the visible. It seems that only one of the two layers that I selected were made 2D. So which is the layer that I miss here? The sections. Yeah, so Genaro says, go back to your perspective view and understand that here you have also these curves, that they were your sections and they belong under this blue layer. Why you don't have this blue layer under the Make 2D? That's a big problem. So what I will do, instead of just moving on to Illustrator, I will go ahead and Make 2D alone now those two section lines. So first I will join them, and then I will go back to my front view, the exact same view. I will deselect what I'm not interested in, and I will type Make 2D. Okay, so hidden lines, it doesn't matter because there are no hidden lines. Over here, we just have one flat polyline. So we'll just say OK. I will go back to my top view, move out what I just created, and now I'm almost ready. All I need to do is to select that, try to join it, and move it in place. So I will select this polyline, move it up here, and now I know that if I select all of that and place it in Illustrator, I have both this close polyline that I can paint very nicely, I can place a solid as black or a hatch, and then all of the red lines, and why not even the hidden lines that I can give extra depth and sophistication to my section cut. So basically it's a very simple process. It implies only two steps. First step is to use the command section and create a section through your drawing, your geometry, excuse me. And second step, because this section is not alone on its own, it doesn't have depth, go ahead and trim your geometry. Go under the front of or side view or back, whatever view is the one that shows your geometry, and make 2D. Overlap the section and then make 2D outcome in order to have a line drawing that is ready to be placed in Illustrator. Questions? Does this sound reasonable to everybody? Yeah? So that's the process you guys will be following every time from this point on, that I will be asking for sections. So I haven't asked for sections. From this point on, whatever we do, I will say generate 1 or 2 sections. Keep in mind that these are the steps to move on. I want to go back before I finish. I will select my very first surface and copy. And here I want your help. The command that I used in order to create thickness to this canopy was the offset surface. Is there another command that I could use and give me thickness? Again? Extrude surface. So let's try extrude surface. And let's see very closely the parentheses. So we can say both sides. We have that option in the offset surface too. Of course, we want to say solid. And that's what is very, very different here in this command is this option of giving direction. So by default, the direction in the word coordinate planes goes towards the z-axis, either positive or negative. But I can click here and say extrude towards this direction. We go to the front view, this diagonal direction. I can go back to my perspective and create a thickness that is extruded in a little bit of a weird way. I will Control Z, I will type extrude surface again, and I will keep the default Z-axis extrusion. 0.5, that's the thickness I use for the other command too, and this is what I get. What do you guys think about this geometry? It does have a thickness. Is it what I want to or not? Why, Jason? It's uneven, yeah. So the problem with extrude surface is that you give one general direction for the extrusion. What happens and is great in the offset surface is that you work with the normals. So as you can see here, the poly surface that is created is always perpendicular to each of the control points of my very first surface. So if I go back, and go and analyze my direction, these arrows show the exact offset that will happen using the offset surface command. Is that clear to everybody, the difference between the two? Yeah. So for that reason, we really want to use offset surface instead of extrude surface. That's a very common mistake we all do. Okay, so are we good to go? More questions, or it's fine? It's fine, no?